Welcome everyone. I am Mr. Goldenbaum, and this is Supremacy 1914. And we are back playing as Oklahoma on the Scattered America map. We have retaken our rightfully deserved first place spot here. Sorry, Louisiana. Sorry, not sorry. We climbed over 50 points, or just under 49 points. Yeah. 49 points to take the first spot, to take the first place spot. Things are going very well for us, but there have been a few interesting developments. As you can see, we have begun the assault on Missouri. We have decided to target the province here of Eureka, as they had a lot of low morale soldiers here prior to the initiation of combat here. And with these soldiers having a much lower morale, they were going to be taking casualties much quicker, and I'd be able to deal with them sooner than maybe one of these other stacks that has morale, above 75%, or some of these heroes that also have fortifications. Kind of wanted to do a early mop up here, and then the other bonus with this province as well, not that I care for the grain, the fortification looks like it won't last either. However, I did want these long stretches of paths, territory, routes. Let's go with routes. These long routes where the opponent would have to traverse through enemy territory, which would give us a lot more flexibility. Unfortunately, with some of our core provinces here, there's not much of a wiggle room. This oil province is great. Missouri actually launched a few thousand troops, and we were able to stack wipe them entirely without losing a single soldier. So this is the beauty of these longer travel distances. So I would like to secure this area. I'd like to secure this area and then go for the kill by taking the capital. And then these two provinces over here are going to be a high priority, along with South Dakota's double wood. We did get an artillery piece out from both of our core double producing provinces, our two key industrial provinces. So we have two now, and we have Tatiana. At this point, she has about 24 confirmed kills, whereas the artillery unfortunately only have 2 at the moment. But as you can see, this stack, this armored car is on life support, and these other infantry units continue to take casualties, and each time they take casualties, there's a little bit of excess damage that is split and allocated amongst the pool. So this stack will fall very soon, and then we will be able to move these forces over here to the east to start chipping away at the Aurora province. I'd like to capture these provinces, boost the morale up a little bit, and then we would be able to use them to launch a lot of our other offenses into Missouri. What I don't want to do is I don't want our main stacks to be kind of traversing, doing a lot of damage out here, but then unfortunately being stuck up against the wall with South Dakota's fortified provinces, and then I would be the one sitting in these low morale areas, whereas South Dakota would have maybe something closer to 70% in some of these, giving them the morale advantage, and I'd be taking the hit on hit points over time. That's not what I want with a status quo, so this approach is a little bit more static, a little bit more cautious, but we have the time. We are using our resources widely. I think we do have the upper hand, so we don't have to rush we don't have to rush these engagements. Should we have been a little bit behind, it may have made more sense. I know we talked about launching an offensive over here into South Dakota, but unfortunately he was able to reinforce with additional troops, with cavalry, with a level 6 Lawrence, which I believe gives you some pretty good boost. So he had the movement speed bonus, he was able to get there really fast, spawns in with a ton of infantry, and then he has a huge attack bonus. And looking at the guy, even the cavalry here, if you look at cavalry, they do have a bit more hit points than infantry, just 5 additional hit points. And then they have 7.5 defense, whereas I believe a normal infantry unit has just the 5. So they're 50% better on defense than infantry. And he's able to stack a lot of these bonuses from Lawrence and the cavalry into, if you take a look here, the 20 most powerful units deal full damage, and then the extra units deal reduced damage. That first 20 is just so much more powerful than what we were able to muster with Hank's army. Unfortunately, at some point, you hit the 50 mark, all these additional infantry units do not contribute to our damage. Yes, they do give us additional hit points and give us some additional staying power, but they would not, unfortunately, be able to help us in causing additional damage. And should we get bogged down here, I would not be surprised if he was able to reinforce quickly with an additional 40 stack just to the east, and he's got a bunch more over to the west, 21,000. I'm sure there's another large stack over here. I would also not be surprised if he would have gold marked an additional fort. We've got a little bit of trauma here. We're playing against some of these gold mark players where they're boosting level 5 forts just a few seconds before contact, that I was hoping to avoid. I just didn't want to make another one of those blunders and then be playing from a disadvantage when I didn't need to take the fight or engagement. He's been, very active. He's been doing a great job, and I just didn't want to take the risk. Whereas Missouri has been making a lot of mistakes, and I would certainly like to deal with this coalition one member at a time and force, let's take a look here, State of Diplomacy, and force South Dakota to make a mistake in commitment while I'm taking out one of their allies here. Meanwhile, in the east, Louisiana has cleaned up most of this Kentucky territory. As you can see here, he's just kind of wrapping up some of these other undefended provinces. You have 11 stack against 2. I think that's a fight he can take. The morale is low. Yes, there's a fortification. But, I mean, honestly, 2,000 units, even if this takes a few ticks to break through, because the fortification would be providing 54% protection. I mean, 2,000 infantry units just don't have a lot of damage on them. It's 3.3, so eventually he would break through. Maybe he'd lose one. I just don't think his casualties would be that severe, and he would take a pretty nice province with a fortification. I think Kentucky's going to fall here very quickly. There's also another fortification here with a balloon. Easily could have taken that over here with this Marco division, but he has started the offensive against Missouri from the east. And looking at this balloon, wow, it is almost dead. Looking at this balloon, it's almost gone here. I'm not sure if he managed to... Yes, okay, so he has been directly concentrating against the balloon here, this balloon brigade. It's outside of the fort, so it doesn't have the additional protection. And this is line of sight, or I should say view range, that we want to deny this coalition. So they're not aware of his movements or some of my movements. The less they know, the better in this situation. And then once he's able to take out the balloon, I'm sure he'll be chipping away here at this other 18 stack. He's got a nice shield here, 3,027. I should say 3 armored cars, 27 infantry, and an Orhan, giving a nice armored car defensive boost or bonus. And then it looks like he's actually reinforcing with an additional 18 stacks. So even if Missouri's able to muster something, it's not going to change the tide of the war. His morale is significantly higher. I would not be surprised if after he was able to take out the balloon and just chip away a little bit more damage here, he does commit for the fortification, as he probably would trade pretty well against that 18 stack. Though preserving infantry is always key in a lot of these fights. I mean, preserving your mechanized units takes priority over that. I would gladly trade infantry in a lot of these situations if it means protecting some artillery, rail guns, battleships. At that stage of the game, infantry just becomes cannon fodder. It's nice to have, but it's not going to change the tide of a lot of battle, especially if you're concentrating some heavy tanks or even regular tanks in a lot of these battles, as they're able to benefit from the first 20 unit bonus, whereas a standard infantry stack, you're going to be capped on that infantry. You're going to be capped on that attack damage or defense damage whereas a lot of these other armies are going to be significantly higher. Whereas a tank army is going to be able to hit much higher damage thresholds, both in terms of offense and defense, than a normal infantry stack would. It looks like he does have one additional artillery piece coming online. I believe he built that out of, yes, his Double Fish province, going for the level 3, more artillery. I mean, he's got 2, let's see, nothing there, 3 coming online. He is building up production on a lot of the double oils, double wood, but I believe 3 simultaneous artillery units in production is kind of his cap at the moment. We'll see if he's able to sustain it. South Mexico is essentially done. We are going to wrap up these last few provinces, or I should say, we're going to capture these last few provinces from South Mexico, take out the units. We did see that there was a stack that just embarked over here in the north. I don't know how big the stack is, or if there's a player still controlling South Mexico. But if we zoom out here, there are no other provinces from South Mexico. So once we secure these 3, any units on the map he should have will disappear. So nothing to really worry about, even if he lands right here, right there. The disembarkment time and the travel distance would be significantly longer than what it's going to take us. Chihuahua has made steady progress here in North California, but I believe they have hit a roadblock. There's some heavy fortifications here in the north, plus some larger infantry stacks. If we zoom out here, we can still see that North California is still in AI, so the counterattacks have been limited. And then the stack he has over here, and fortunately for Chihuahua here, because North California is an AI, he really hasn't, or the AI hasn't really done much. This stack could have caused so much damage in his core territory, defended a lot of these other units, or this stack could have destroyed a lot of the other units. It's important to note that he has 10 cavalry here. That would be a total of 147, almost 148 damage from this small force. But unfortunately for California, fortunately for Chihuahua, he was able to take this other province, so that these units aren't in this high morale province anymore, and they're not in the fortification, leaving them significantly exposed. If Chihuahua just kind of brings over the artillery, maybe around here or here, starts peppering away while stationing a large garrison here in Brawley, or actually I take the artillery here and then you keep a nice garrison here in Mexicali and Sonoita, especially with the fortifications, and this stack has nowhere to go. Its morale is starting to drop. He can do a significant amount of damage in a relatively short period of time and just kind of wipe out this threat in the area. However, that's not what he's chosen to do. He has gone on the offensive against Utah, securing 4 early provinces and the double oil right here. There may have been some, I believe there were some additional fortifications on the border too, but some of them may have just disappeared after he conquered them. Looks like the fortification here did survive. He was able to take out some armored balloons. Utah, on the other hand, decided to pull back, raid the territory for time, allow his opponent to spread out some of the troops here. I mean, if we take a look, there are, 11,000 troops just kind of spread around, not doing much. There were additional troops that were also marching toward the Grand Canyon region that also fell. With Chihuahua spreading out a lot of his troops, it's going to be very easy for Utah to just come and mop up a lot of these units with these engagements. You have the 51 stack here that will resecure the oil. He's not going to take any casualties, and I believe recapturing a core territory, or at least I believe like above a certain threshold, maybe 70%, would allow your morale when you recapture it. It would be much higher than your standard 25% when you capture an enemy's province. I mean, this 2 stack here is going to fall to the 34 very easily. The 4 stack here may secure the province, but there's nothing stopping the 34 stack from just wiping them out. And the 2 stack here is going to fall to the armored car and the 10 infantry stack in Shola. With those offensives, I would not be surprised if Utah kind of went ahead and recaptured some of these other territories, if not kind of spill out over here a bit into California. Should I be in this position, I would have brought the balloon back to provide additional coverage. I would have continued just kind of mopping up, contesting a lot of these areas, lowering the morale, forcing Chihuahua to traverse and garrison low morale provinces, slowly chipping away at their hit points while he's, sitting in these higher 82% developed provinces, taking on these favorable fights and engagements. If we take a look at the paper, we can see that, Chihuahua has done some good damage against Utah, and I believe most of that came from the province here of Yuma, where he was able to start peppering it with artillery and actually take it over with, I assume it was probably Marco's squad, coupled with the 24th stack that we see here. It's a small setback. I'm sure that Utah is going to be able to concentrate a lot of soldiers here in the north and start pushing Chihuahua back. Chihuahua has, 53,000 troops in the west here. That's a very significant army. Kind of matches his 51 Hank stack. But he does have an additional 73,000, followed by another 22,000 here in his core territory that will prove to be a challenge. So I'm not sure that Chihuahua made a mistake earlier in attacking Utah. We weren't recommending he go after Utah. We told him to focus over here in California, Washington, Oregon, and kind of go up the coast with some naval ships that he would be able to produce out of his level 3 factory and harbor. On the coast, it would be pretty quick and easy, and focus on the territory here in California, and to avoid Utah. I like this buffer situation we've had some mutual understanding. Seemed like a really nice guy. We talked Chihuahua out of it initially. He claimed it was an accident, but I don't believe that at all. And well, I didn't believe that. And it turns out that I was right, and he was going to attack again. Taking a look at the statistics here, Utah at this stage has lost 59,000 troops with a pretty good ratio, whereas Chihuahua has lost an entire 164,000. So going into this fight, Utah should have about 100,000 infantry advantage, especially since Chihuahua here, if we take a look at the morale, they've primarily been stuck on their initial 10 with a few provinces in the west. All of this is all new recent conquests that aren't producing infantry, aren't really creating a surplus of resources. They're a drain on his economy until a few day ticks when that morale breaks that 70% threshold, including these provinces that he took from Utah. So I am surprised that Chihuahua has had such a large army compared to Utah, which has been sitting on 2 major states for a while, plus the additional provinces he took from Arizona. I mean, he's been trading very efficiently, so I'm surprised that he hasn't been able to muster an additional, 50 to 100,000 stack in the south here with some mechanized units to put up more of a challenge against Chihuahua. At this stage, it seems like anyone's fight. I'm not getting involved. I told Utah that I was not getting involved. I didn't like the situation that was developing. I told Chihuahua I didn't like the situation here. I don't recommend you going after Utah. We have bigger fish to fry. In our core provinces, we actually began construction on an aerodrome so that we would be able to deploy our new hero, Ivan. Now, something interesting to note is you can deploy Yvonne to a province without a completed aerodome. I believe it's about halfway there, maybe it's 3/4. It's a little difficult to see here, but once you see the aerodome show up on the map, you should be able to deploy the hero. He has a pretty long range, so we will actually be using him to scout a lot of these further regions, not necessarily using his patrol ability to begin engagements, as Missouri should have some armored balloons kind of scattered about, and armored balloons do a good amount of damage against bombers and airplanes in general. But there is some really good intel we should be able to obtain prior to getting a whole bunch of bombers of our own. Yvonne is a really powerful early bomber unit. I don't want to lose him very early on, but I do want to maximize his utilization here on the front. Should we see any kind of reinforcements from North Dakota or any kind of mechanized units come into the front outside of balloons, and armored cars surprisingly do really, really well against air units with an entire air defense of 8, which I also believe is the same amount. For balloons, which it is. It is the 8. But any juicy targets such as artillery or railguns will be fair game, and I will certainly make use of our hero unit. And with that, we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.